let's see what I was going to tell you here. You know, the best teacher I ever had was Hugh Hodgson. And the reason why Hugh Hodgson was the greatest teacher I had was when you finish the course, he had inspired us enough to want to continue the process. I mean, the learning. And so, I mean, literally, I went to his first when I was in, I don't know what grade, I was in the 8th or whatever, 9th grade. I went over to his Wagner opera class, and I'm still studying, you know, Wagner opera. And so I really think that's the mark of the best teacher, because I took a lot of courses and I thought, Lord, if I ever get out of this final exam, I will never think about this again. That teacher failed. That teacher failed. So if you've been inspired, you know, then this class will be a success. If you didn't, blame part on me and blame part on you, please. All right, today we're talking about, yes.
You got the mic on?
Oh, no, I don't have it. Oh, gosh, I forgot.
We'll be even more inspired.
Thank you, Charlie. Okay, can you hear? Good. All right. Today we're going to concentrate on two of the greatest. We're going to talk about Maria Callas, 1923 to 1977, and then later on our own Robert Shaw. A lot of people think she's the greatest soprano of all time. Now that's debatable. That's a matter of taste among other things, but we'll explore that. Term you need to know is coloratura. You know, when I say coloratura, that's runs and trills and you know, lots of vocal flexibility, coloratura. There are three vocal registers that we talk about: the low voice, the middle voice, and the high voice in singers. And it's not enough to be good at two of those. You've got to be good at all three of them. And and we know we've talked in the past about the kinds of sopranos. The very highest, most flexible, and all that are the lyric sopranos. And then you've got spinto soprano. That's in between lyric and dramatic. Dramatic is going to be the larger voice, the slightly darker voice, and that one subdivision of dramatic soprano is the Wagnerian soprano. We heard the great Birgit Nielsen. So keep that in mind. I want to move quickly through the biography of Maria Callas. Let me tell you, this lady, she was unbelievable. And a few here biographical highlights, and the Wikipedia entry on a lot of composers will run 5 or 6 pages. Hers is 23 pages, and so she's about the #1 larger than life classical musical figure of all times. And her here two special Memphis. And so her influence on other singers and on opera itself was just unbelievable, because she's the one who really inspired going back to the Bellini operas and the Donizetti. She was the one who did that and opened the careers for you know, so many other people, so many greats like Joan Sutherland and Beverly Sills. The BBC Music magazine said she was the greatest soprano of all time. Now, why would they say that? I think the main reason is that she excelled in all of these categories. She could do all of them. It was unbelievable. One week at La Fenice in Venice, she was singing Isolde one day and then La Sonnambula, you know, 2 days later, and it was just unbelievable. But she and her vocal range was just a half note less than 3 octaves. She could go from the F sharp below middle C, you know, up to the high E or something. It was unbelievable. So I guess that's the reason why. And the other thing is that evidently seeing her perform on stage was absolutely electrifying. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. Her sound remains controversial, and you know, she sang too long, and then she developed this. Well, you know, that's the sound I don't want to hear, And so basically that's, you know, these prima donnas, that's sometimes they hold on after their voices. We've heard that in many cases. And so she said that she thought her voice was ugly, which is amazing to me. But somebody else said, you know, she had one of the qualities that you've got to have if you're going to have a great, you know, be a great soprano with a great reputation, and that is an immediately recognizable voice. And she had that for sure. And she put it to good use and became the world's greatest diva. And people debate whether she was really more a mezzo who extended her top notes or whether she was a real soprano. But and people just still to this day love talking about Maria Callas. She started out as a 5'8.5" fat lady. And in 1953, she lost over 80 pounds and became possibly the most beautiful, you know, woman on the stage during all of that era. Glamour, just unbelievable. But, you know, and people have debated what was the effect of that 80-pound weight loss on her voice, and that's, people still debate it. Some of her finest singing actually came after she had had this weight loss. But anyhow, it must have had, you know, some effect, because it's not enough that you can still do it now. How much longer can you do it? You know, what's the long-term effect of a big weight loss like that? She clearly started developing vocal issues in the late 1950s. And you know, that developed, and she developed that was her vibrato later on, and you know, that's why a lot of us say, "Ooh, my." But her on-stage career was basically over at 40, and there are lots of people, you know, who continue well into their 50s with successful careers. Or if you get somebody like Placido Domingo, he's 76. And he's still singing new roles and doing it's unbelievable. And so anyhow, maybe the weight loss just kicked in a little bit later or something. I don't know. Her personal life was filled with, you know, so much drama. She was born like on 192nd Street in Manhattan, and her parents, Greek immigrants, were always feuding. And her mother took her to Greece when she was about 13 or something, and she was there during the war. And she forced her daughter to sing, and Mary, as she was called then, Mary hated it, and she never forgave her mother for forcing her into singing. She tried to get into the conservatory in Athens, and she was not admitted. Times were really hard during the German occupation of Greece, and her mother encouraged her to go out with the German soldiers and then bring home some money or some food or something. And a close friend said she remained untouched, and that's given her strength, that seems likely. She started with small roles in the Greek National Opera, and then she went to Italy, where she was taken under the wings of the great conductor Tullio Serafin, and her career, you know, moved up. In 1949, she married an industrialist who managed her career until 1959. His name was Meneghini, Battista Meneghini, and so she was with him for about 10 years. In that year, 1959 or so, she left him and married the Greek shipping magnate Onassis, and they were together for a few years until he took off with Jackie Kennedy. And although this was a big blow to Callas, who was such a reigning diva and big personality at that time, they continued to rendezvous in Paris during his Jackie O years. And so, I mean, this lady's got quite a biography, let me tell you. And so at the end of her life, you know, she died of a heart attack in 77 or whatever else. She had a controversy in her career, you know, with the great opera houses of the world, but she ended up opening the season in all of them. It's unbelievable. The La Scala general manager didn't like her, but
there's such demand. She opened the season there in Norma in 1951. She sang Norma at Covent Garden opening season. She made her U.S. debut in 1954 as Norma at the Lyric Opera Company, and then she opened the Met season in 1956. She was a big deal in the opera world, and so she. People talk about her not getting along with this general manager, that, but she wasn't always at fault. I mean, I think her falling out at the Met with Bing was that he wanted her to sing both a dramatic role and a lyric role at the same time, and that's so hard on the voice. You've got to change everything in order to do the high. I mean, it doesn't come out. You've got to place your voice in a certain way, which I really don't understand, but you have to place your voice, and then if you switch to the heavier role, you've got to place your voice in a different way there. That's all having to do with vocal technique. And so she refused to do it. Bing said, well, then you're not going to sing here, and they made up later. But, we listened to Pavarotti, and in so many ways, Pavarotti is the dominant operatic personality of the last 50 years. I think in large part that was because of television and all that he could do there. She didn't have, the exposure, Maria Callas, but there really is no comparison. I mean, vocally, they're both wonderful, but he could barely read a score. He could barely read a musical score. She had this, spectacular musicianship. He was all of that. So when it comes to just the craft of all of this, there's no question who would dominate there. All right. Now we're going to listen to some of her great recordings, and with the first one, we're going to hear her in her lyric voice. And we're going to hear this great song that she opened so many arias that she opened so many opera seasons with. It's Casta Diva from Bellini's Norma, and this is a live recording from '52. And a lot of people have said, somebody else, I love all these votings that they do. They voted this the best opera recording of all time. It would not be that for me, but that's some group of critics said that. And a lot of people say this is the most demanding role in all of opera. Well, it may or may not be, but anyhow, it's tough, and how you do all this, who knows. Now, you're going to hear a lot of, actually, the way this aria is put together, you have the theme is basically played through, and it's extended by the orchestra. Then she sings the first verse, and then she repeats that, and with minor variations. And we're starting with the repeat. So this is Casta Diva from Bellini's Norma. Casta Diva, Queen of Heaven. This is a prayer. vocal problems there, I tell you. And I mean, that's just about it's just gorgeous singing. Now, that's her lyric voice. We're now going to switch over and hear her in her dramatic voice. The role of Lady Macbeth in the opera Macbeth by Verdi is just unbelievably demanding because it has a high notes, it has a low note, she's got to be in fury. I think it was Verdi who said, I don't want a beautiful voice for this role. I want fury, I want aggression, I want strength. And let me tell you, you can get it from this lady. And what's going on here is Lady Macbeth, she muses on the plot to come, which is the killing of King and Duncan. And she says, radiant sun, soon you will be overshadowed by the dark, and the dark will shroud, the event that comes ahead. And then if glory comes, because we're going to have the throne.
Oh.
Tough lady, let me tell you that. You hear a lot of low voice in this, as well as the top voice. Weight loss. Listen to the excitement she gets in the voice. Low voice. you all to grow, and I've been growing. I went into this thinking, well, Callas can't do what Netrebko does. I've just been at Netrebko's concert in December at Carnegie Hall, and the lady can do so much. And so the things that I selected for today were recorded by Netrebko and Maria Callas. And I went into this saying, well, Callas can't do what she. Let me tell you, I selected Callas every time. He's a better sound, better recording, and just everything about it. And so I'm growing. I hope you're growing. All right, now we're going to now hear her when she shows off. Really, we've had the lyric. It's all beautiful, but this is all designed just to show off her beautiful voice. And this is one of my favorite. It's listed. It's Callas opera arias, and this just has so many wonderful things. This is the great first opening aria from Adriana Lecouvreur that we've talked about. And what she is saying is, she's a great actress, Adriana is, and she's being praised by all these people. And she says, oh, don't praise me, I'm just the handmaiden of the creative spirit. And so that's what she sings in this great aria. This is it. And so we're doing this one so you hear just how beautiful her voice can be. I'll tell you before we get there. At the end, she's going to go from a middle voice to a high G, and then from A to a high A, and then it's going up. And what you want to do, one of the things you do is, how does the singer connect? How does the singer connect these two voices? And there's one when it's very pronounced. You go, it's this sort of thing. That's called portamento, carry. And this is one of the great challenges in this aria is the portamento that she shows at the very end, reaching these high notes at the very end. So here we go.
Portamento. Portamento. Now, a lot of you have this recording, but my guess is that you've never heard it, really, because when you play it, this is what you do. I'm afraid to tell you, this is what happens when you do this. All right, this is what you do. You're not hearing it because you can't even got it. It's too soft. You know, if you're going to hear this, you've got to get up the volume so you can really get it. And if somebody doesn't like it, tell them to go into another room. My goodness. So, if you don't learn anything else, say, I got to get the volume so I can really hear this thing. Okay. Now, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to omit this great aria from La Mama Morto because we've got to get on to Robert Shaw. But this is the recording again. It's called Callas Opera Arias, and it's EMI. It's terrific, and it just has so many wonderful things. But anyhow, that gives you a little exposure to Maria Callas, and you can decide whether she's the greatest soprano of all time. But there are people who study this a lot, and she's their choice, and there's a lot of reasons for that, I would say. But that's a matter of personal taste. Okay, now we come to our own Robert Shaw. And I don't want to shortchange him at all because he's just too important. Goodbye, Maria. All right, Robert Shaw, 1916 to 1999. He's I think he's almost a consensus greatest choral conductor of all time. And he was here, and as you know, conducting out, and he was a great orchestral composer also, conductor also. One thing you got to do, one thing we want to concentrate is kind of what do conductors do? You know, do they just get up there and say, da, 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 and is that what they do? No. Are they just setting the beat? No. They've got so much. That's what we want to concentrate. Well, first of all, I'm going to turn you all into a conductor, and you know we want to see what you do and what is the standard beat. Now they don't always do this, but if it's two beats, it's one, and that this place down here that where the one is supposed to be, that's called the ictus. 1, 2, 1, 2. All right, everybody beat 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. And you can have a little flare at 1, 2. You know, curl at the bottom when you go 1, 2. Now, if it's 3, it's a triangle. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right. And if it's 4, you go 1, left, right, up, down, left, right, up, down, left, right, up. Now that's, and it's easy. We're going to say it's easy if you're doing that, and it's strict. But if what happens is the rhythm always going to be strict, like walking 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, or you want to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, that's where you get the flexibility in the rhythm. And you know, the conductor's got to make that work right. And he's got, you know, 115 people, and then he's got to, you know, convey, you know, kind of that flexible rhythm. Is that easy? No. Is that just waving your hands? Absolutely not. Don't be fooled by that. Okay. One of the things that we're going to I'll talk about staggered breathing. How long can you go without breathing in the chorus? Now, one thing, the choral conductor, before passing out the parts, they will have marked them to say, here's where you breathe, and it's generally at the end of a phrase. But sometimes you want the breath, you want the sound to continue over the bar into the next phrase. And so the way you do that
Let's see how long we can hold, let's say, sing For the Beauty of the Earth. And let's see where we breathe. For the beauty of the earth, for the... Wait, see, we breathed. Now, this time I want you to do it and go over that bar line, okay? And let's see whether or not we can keep, and not have the breath at the end of the phrase, but grab a breath in between, okay? But not at the end. Okay, here we go. For the beauty of the earth, for the glory of the skies, for thy love. And so you can do that by having people not breathe at the same time, but catch a breath in between. But you can achieve an entirely different choral quality, by the way you set up the breathing. That the whole group is not breathing at the same time. We want to go over the bar line or whatever else. Okay, now a little bit about Robert. Did I tell you anything? Yeah, let me tell you about Robert. Interesting man. There he is. I'm going to let you read the Wikipedia or archive notes or whatever they are. Let you read that, but here are a few things I would say to you. He was not a singer. He did not play any instrument. He did not major in music. He did not attend a music conservatory. He was largely self-taught. And however, through hard work and sheer tenacity, he became, the acknowledged greatest choral conductor of the era. And he was a great conductor of the Atlanta Symphony, but self-taught. Hard work, my God. He was a god to choral singers. He led several professional choruses, but he had this special affinity for the amateur chorus. And amateur is related to the word that says for the love of it, amor. And so anyhow, he loved his chorus because they sang for the love of it. So when you go to the Atlanta Symphony and you've got all those people singing, they're not paid a penny. They are not, the expenses are not reimbursed. It's unbelievable. And and these people they come to regular rehearsals and you expect them to have learned their parts and all of that, but on a performance week they will have rehearsals on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday nights, and they perform Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And imagine the giving that much time for love. And some of these people are driving from Adairsville or way out there. I mean, almost as south. And some people do come over from South Carolina. It's unbelievable, and it's because they love it, and he inspires that. It's just incredible. He often told his amateur choir, he said, music is like sex. We just can't leave it all to the professionals. One of the extraordinary things about Robert was that he did not try to maximize what he could make. I was his lawyer for a long time, and I negotiated some of this, and he said, do not argue with their salary offer. He was being he was having a hard time with them anyhow, and he said, I don't want to give them that excuse. But he never really was trying to maximize what he could make, which was, really extraordinary. He would go to Idaho and to help a friend with a choral workshop, just because he wanted to help them, and no charge. He would go to Brevard Music Center in Brevard, North Carolina, and spend a whole week there, and no charge. It was incredible. He would pick up the calls for a Moorhead, student to get private singing lessons. So he was really extraordinary in that regard. He was married first to Maxine, and they were living in Cleveland, and he had 3 children, and that was not a happy situation because he was gone all the time. And then when he moved here, Maxine didn't move with him, and they subsequently got a divorce. And then he married our own Caroline Shaw, and Caroline Sauls was her maiden name. She was then married to Elliot Hitz, and then they were divorced, and she was the one who decided. She said, I'm going to marry that guy, Robert Shaw, and he didn't know what hit him, quite frankly. And they met in the Save Shaw movement. That's when the executive committee of the symphony fired him because they didn't like ticket sales and didn't like his programming. And that's when a group of people, Betty and I were part of it too, got into the Save Shaw movement. And an extraordinary real estate guy called Washington Falk paid $10,000 to get a whole page of the Atlanta paper to say Save Shaw. And it was, buy a subscription, but make it contingent on Shaw being the conductor. So the community overrode the decision by the executive committee. It was all kind of thrilling. Well, Caroline was part of that, and then she decided, this is my fella, and they had a wonderful marriage. She helped stabilize his personal and professional lives, and he bore his son Thomas, and so she contributed greatly to his success, and especially in Carnegie Hall and all of these other things. And he credited her with so much of the success in the last 20 years. Ben and I were very close to the Shaws. I'm Thomas's godfather, and Caroline Shaw is Phoebe Edge's godmother. So, and we've spent a lot of time with them, and so it's a great privilege for me to offer this salute to these great friends and these great contributors to our community. Okay, now we're going to now listen to some of his major works. He had a special affinity for Bach and the B minor Mass, and we're going to hear the Kyrie eleison from the Bach B minor Mass, and this opens with the traditional plea for mercy, and this is an elaborate fugue. And you remember what a fugue is? You've got a fugue theme, and it comes in different voices, but they come in at different times. So you've got to have a fugue melody that is nice as just by itself. But then so you start in this case with the basses. Then the tenors come in a little bit later. Well, it's got to make sense not only horizontally, but it's got with the notes overlap. It's got to make sense. It's like a crossword puzzle. And then you add, the altos come in. Now you've got to have three notes and that makes sense. And then finally the sopranos, that's the fourth. So it's like a very, very elaborate, complicated crossword puzzle. And Bach was the great genius of all of this. And I want you to, one of the things that the conductor has to do here is to, kind of help the listener identify when these different voices come in. And that's your job while we listen to this B minor Mass Kyrie. In the next life, I'm going to be a technological genius.
Will you still do music?
Listen, see whether you can hear these entrances. Uh-oh. All right, we've got the basses. They're giving us the fugal theme. Tenors have now entered. Let's see whether you hear the next one that comes in. Raise your hand when the next voice comes in. Not yet. called, it says many lines, and it's really one line being overlapped. Now we're going to go to homophonic music, and in the homophonic music, you've got, that's like the melody is in the voices, and you have an accompaniment in the orchestra. So this is called homophonic music, and this is going to be the Duraflé Requiem, the Sanctus, and it's just incredibly beautiful. And what the conductor's role here is to shape this piece. And what it is, this piece really is kind of like a mountain. It's going to go up, and it's going to be soft. You're going to hear it's kind of like meandering waters or something, you know, with the voices. And then he's got to bring it so that you climax at the right time, and then bring it down. So what the conductor here is shaping the musical message. You know, so and he can't, you know, if he's building to this crescendo, he can't get to the top before it's really the climax. He's got to keep, you know, all these people under control so that when you reach the climax at the right time, he's shaping, you know, what the music is going to be. This is incredibly beautiful piece. I just love this. Now, hold on, where is this? Okay. This is going to be number 11. Emma, you're going to have to do this next time. This is Swirling Waters. This is the orchestra. This is Ray Chenault's favorite composer. We've got to the Hosanna now. We've been in Sanctus, now it's moving Hosanna for the middle section. And we're going to get the great climax on Excelsis. Can he control it and get it at the right moment, right level? Swirling waters in the orchestra. We're gonna move right to the next one. This is unaccompanied. This is Vespers. It's an all-night vigil for a deceased person. It's unaccompanied, seamless choral sound. Rejoice, O Virgin. This is seamless. It's no breaks, they say. It's time for you to go over the borderline. He's balancing the different sections. How much bass do I want to have? How flexible do I want the rhythm to be? Listen to the basses here. That's electrifying to me. Now what's going on there is, you know, in music, there's something called a something called a fermato. It's curl thing up there and then a dot, and that says hold it. How long do you hold it? You know, and it says fast. Well, how fast is fast? The score says loud. How loud is loud? And see, all of this is what the conductor is doing. Is trying to make all of those decisions. You know, and the beat too. When should the beat give, not be strict? And so, you know, the conductor is supposed to be in charge of all of these musical forces and making all of these musical decisions. And that's why his job is so hard and why it is so important. So, please don't think they're just beating the beat. You know, I mean, it's so complicated. All right, we generally supposed to end now. If you're going to 11 o'clock, let us excuse you. But are the rest of you willing to go on for a few more minutes? Yes. Okay. All right. I want to keep anybody from going to church. I'm not keeping anybody from going to church, am I? No. Okay. All right. Well, then we're going to go ahead. The next one is from by the way, this is just such a great. It's called Choral Masterpieces, and it's Robert Shaw and the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra and Chorus, and it's just fabulous. Now we're going to hear. He did a special recording for. It started with a commission that we gave him from Spivey Hall, and he put this out of that program came this, and this is these are Schubert's songs for male chorus, and this is the predecessor of the college glee club singing. And this thing, you won't hear anything much. Well, that the Rachmaninoff we just heard may rival this, but this is one of the most beautiful things ever recorded, as far as I'm concerned. And this again is unaccompanied, and you're going to hear. We've got to have rich chords, and that's going to require four parts. You just got men, so you have bass 1 and 2, and you have tenors 1 and 2, and then they subdivide further. And again, the breathing here is unbelievable, as you will hear. It's because he wants this great, he wants to have this great, beautiful sound. And what I really want you to know is to pay attention to is the beat and the rhythmic pattern, and see what you hear in this. Carrying over the bar line. I'm going to start it again while you hear. Is speaking to the night and saying, you are beautiful, and from the heavenly meadows the stars look down from the azure blue. All right, now I want you all to beat them, to do the rhythm here. Now, I'm going to play for you first. Now that's hard to get, that many people singing and feeling that rhythmic flexibility. Second verse. See, he holds that center beat of, about 3 beats. So his job is in the preparation, rehearsals, is to get these people prepared to sound, they're all on the same wavelength. I'm not going to try that with you all. I meant to say, when we're talking about all the choices, why is Robert Shaw considered the greatest conductor? it's in the preparation and how he knew how to prepare the chorus, you know, and to be really unified in the musical concept. And that preparation, he'd mark the scores and all that for his singers. I mean, that's one thing. But I think that maybe, as I've tried to, you know, think about this myself, I think it may be because the great critics and the great singers who were singing with him, they liked his musical taste. They liked the choices he made. How long, you know, to hold that fermato. How loud to make it. When it says loud runs from here to here. Where do you put it at different times? And so I've decided that one of the things is that it's his musical taste that is being approved in so many ways, but it's also the preparation and also just the ability to have the skills to keep, you know, all these people going at the same time. All right, now we're going to end. But before we get to this last one, thank you for, you know, those of you who've been coming to this, you know, I love to do it, and thank you. But yeah, thankfully this is a joy of, you know, for me. I hope it's a joy for Betty, you know, because she has to put up with it. All right, now, you know, a lot of you may say, where is the religious content in this course? Well, we're coming to the religious, well, I would say, we've got one that's got religious words. But for me, you know, everything we've done has had religious content. I mean, I really sincerely believe, I mean, great music is such a gift, you know, from the Creator. And, you know, we're the beneficiaries of that. So, for me, it's all a religious experience because it celebrates the creative spirit. Now, what is more religious than that? And that's what we're doing here. Okay, and we're coming here, this is the Veni Creator Spiritus. This is the first movement of the big Mahler 8th Symphony, and it's called the Symphony of 1,000. Well, I've never heard it with 1,000, but I did get to sing. Robert let me sing occasionally the big things at Carnegie Hall, and he had the Cleveland Orchestra and 3 or 4 choruses, and you know, and then it's all just unbelievable and such a thrill. And when we did this in Carnegie Hall, and the very end of it, in the second section, it has this paragraph, this section that begins so quiet, and the New York Times review said, when Shaw and his musical voices got to that point, Carnegie Hall levitated. Pretty good. And we've got 8 soloists in this, and so I want you to think, how hard is it to keep all these musical voices, all these musicians on the same page? And this is extremely difficult music. And so this is the great Veni Creator Spiritus, and the wonderful Deborah Boyd is the wonderful soprano here, if we can. remaining creator. He's got the son. How fast should I make this? I love this moment. Bravo, Robert. Bravo, Marlo.